What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. As you can tell, I am in a different location right now. I'm actually out of town. I will be back in town by the time this video comes out on YouTube, but so that's why the lighting's different, the scenery's all different. It's because I'm somewhere completely different. But that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and do this video. I am talking about the One Piece live action episodes 1 through 4. I was thinking of either doing the live action as like one whole video by itself or splitting it up episode by episode, but I kind of thought grouping it in like the first 4 and then the last 4 would be a better format just for me on the channel and then for y'all as my viewers. So we're gonna do it this way: 2 videos talking about the One Piece live action, and if y'all want more we can kind of work around it, get more videos, we'll go from there. But for right now, we're going to talk about the first 4 episodes of the live action because I've already seen all 8 episodes. I binged it in 2 days and I've seen all of it. I really enjoyed it. They were able to capture the essence and the spirit of One Piece so well, and I was so happy that they did. They did a really good job with it. And of course, there was a lot of changes. They made a whole lot of changes to adapt the entire, well, almost the entire East Blue saga down into 8 episodes, into 8 hours worth of content. And I think they handled it pretty well. I do have a few like gripes and complaints here and there, but those are like personal nitpicks, not necessarily issues with it as a show or an adaptation. There's just some things I would have liked to seen more than others, or things that I wasn't quite sure why they went this way, but that's fine with me. One of the bigger changes that I'll talk about it throughout the video, but one of the bigger changes that took me a while to appreciate and like was the whole side-by-side storyline with Kobe and Garp. I think they could have cut back on that some and given more attention to some of like the crew members, because one of my biggest gripes I think of episode 3 is that they completely rushed through Usopp's backstory, but we're not there yet. But yes, that would probably be one of my biggest things, is just like the side-by-side story felt like it took up a lot of time. I understand why they did it, because you know, they had to condense a lot of things. There were characters they weren't going to introduce and other characters that they needed to introduce sooner. And in order to do that, having Garp there as kind of someone as a stand-in to guide the story, to guide this other side of the story, makes sense. However, starting at episode 1, I really liked how they portrayed Luffy. If anything, the casting for this live action is perfect. Absolutely perfect. I have 0 complaints for all of the characters. They all looked great. Luffy, Inyaki as Luffy is amazing. He was born to be Luffy. I know Oda has met him, Mayumi Tanaka has met him, and they've all approved of him. And he really showed why he got their approval, because he does make a really fantastic Luffy. Of course, he's not the manga Luffy. He is a adapted version of Luffy, but he is Luffy nonetheless. He has the spirit of Luffy, that goofiness, silliness. He has the obliviousness of Luffy. He has the love of meat that Luffy has. Just overall, very well captures Luffy's essence of who he is. I loved how Inyaki portrayed Luffy throughout the series, and in episode 1 and his conversations with Kobe and the interactions with him are so Luffy-like the way when he gets up on deck and he's swinging around that huge oar and it bangs into something metal on deck and it wakes everybody up, and that's just such a Luffy thing to do. I loved that. It was so good. Hello. Do you want to say hi? Do you want to say hi? This is my doggy. Say hi. You want to say hi to everybody? She wants to sit in my lap, so if you see her head poking out, just ignore her. She's she's gonna be sitting here for a while. She likes to be the center of things, so she will probably be here for majority of the video. I love Inyaki'S portrayal of Luffy. He does a really, really good job with it. His interactions with Kobe are very on point, and even getting further into the show, his interactions with Zorro and then Nami are great. Even like going up against Alvida and then Axe Hand Morgan later on, he's just got that energy that Luffy has, and I think he absolutely nailed it. One of the parts in episode 1 and 2 that I think a lot of people focus on is Shanks' backstory with Luffy. We get to see Shanks. First of all, I thought he looked great. I thought he did a great job playing Shanks. That's just me. I liked some of the changes they made, like how Luffy got the devil fruit, the argument that he had with Shanks, how Shanks dealt with the bandits. A lot of that was different. How Luffy, you know, jabbed himself in the eye was a little different than the manga. But overall, the changes that they did for that backstory was good. They still kept the meat of that backstory, no pun intended. They kept the meat of the backstory and the most important parts, like the lessons Shanks taught to Luffy about, you know, violence isn't always the answer, the way he stood up to the bandits. I did like Shanks' crew. They really got Shanks' crew down, and I saw some people joking about how we got to see more of Shanks' crew fighting in the live action than we have in the anime or the manga. Being as I'm not completely caught up on the manga, that makes me really sad, because I was so hoping to see more of them. But I think that's a really funny thing that they got more screen time in the live action than they have in the manga. But I really like how they handled Luffy and Shanks' backstory. The hat moment from Shanks to Luffy was really good. It still had a punch to it. There was still an emotional punch there, and I think the child actor for Luffy did a good job for what he was given, and Shanks, of course, his actor did a really good job. I liked how they handled that scene, how they did that scene. It was really good. But episode 1, all in all, getting to know Nami and Zorro. First of all, Zorro, McKinney as Zorro, nailed it. I loved the foreshadowing and the teasing they did with Zorro on Sixus Island with his confrontation with Mr. Seven and Baroque Works. That whole bit of foreshadowing that we get in Alabasta, where Zorro talks about how he was almost recruited, or how he was recruited by Baroque Works, but he turned him down, and we actually got to see that happen. I thought that was a really cool nod to Alabasta and that later part in the manga. I also really love how he portrays Zorro. The stoicness, the line delivery, even though the lines are very like flat because it's Zorro, there is still so much to them. He does a very good job with that. He is so unintentionally funny with some of Zorro's lines, and I love that in the bar they kept Zorro eating the rice balls from the little girl, and that's how he met Helmeppo. Listen, I was not prepared for that one scene with Helmeppo. I'm sure all of y'all know exactly what scene that is. I was not prepared for that scene. I was not prepared, but you know what? Zorro gave Helmeppo that haircut, and that part was funny. And I like how when they see Helmeppo again, Luffy starts laughing at him, and Zorro's like, yeah, I might have done that. It really adds to the crew's dynamic, so it's fine. It's there. But yes, Zorro is fantastic. I really loved him in the first few episodes. His introduction in episode 1 and how he is so reluctant to help Luffy, but then just like in the manga, he just becomes part of Luffy's crew and just has his loyalty to Luffy, and we see that solidified later on. But Nami is another one. I love how Emily Red portrays Nami. She has a more serious take on Nami's portrayal, especially for the East Blue. There's still the humor, there's still the comedy that Nami has, and the funny moments that she has, but there's a little bit more seriousness to Emily's portrayal of her, and I actually really like that, because from the get-go there is a lot of heavy foreshadowing that something horrible has happened to Nami regarding pirates because of how angry she is when Luffy brings it up, and how she is so adamant about not wanting to associate with pirates, about not wanting to be a pirate. She hates pirates. I think Emily did such a great job portraying that in Nami, especially in the first episode. I loved her portrayal of it, the way she was maneuvering through the bar, trying to find a target so she could steal the Marine's uniform so that she could get to the get inside to get the map. All of that was just so brilliantly done. I have zero complaints about Nami's character. Honestly, I absolutely adore her. And then at the end of episode 1, we get Buggy. And let me tell you, it has been a complete Buggy takeover. I don't know if any of y'all are on TikTok, but if y'all are, it is literally like a Buggy maelstrom over there. There are edits of Buggy everywhere. Everybody's going absolutely crazy about Buggy. He has taken over TikTok. I heard that he took over Tumblr. Somebody put him on, like, a picture of him on the side of Tumblr that you can't remove, and he's just there. I've seen people who are normally on, like, Book Talk or BookTube on TikTok who have never heard of One Piece, have never watched One Piece, but they have Buggy videos, Buggy edit videos coming up on their For You page, introducing them to One Piece, and that's how they're getting introduced to One Piece. It's not through Zorro or Sanji or anything. It's Buggy. He is completely taken the internet by storm, and it's so Buggy. It's in Buggy's character. It is so Buggy fashion for him to win so many people unintentionally who have never even heard of him, but now they absolutely love and adore him. I think it is the funniest thing. I have spent days laughing about how Buggy has just taken over everything online. It is quite literally the funniest thing to me, because as our king who always fails upwards, he has yet again failed upward and become one of the most popular people and characters in the live action, and I am living for it. I had to join in on the fun on TikTok. I did, because it was just so much fun. I was laughing so much, so I had to add into it, and it's just been so funny to see people's responses. It's honestly really great. The Buggy girls have won, and they're not losing anytime soon. I think it's so funny how much everybody loves live action Buggy. Jeff did a great job taking the role of Buggy and running with it. But yes, Buggy has absolutely taken over, as he should. He is our king. He is the future king of the pirates. Of course he's going to randomly take over without even trying and just take all the credit for it. That's completely Buggy fashion. But yes, we get Buggy's introduction, and then we actually get to see Buggy in episode 2. I love how Buggy is portrayed in the live action. I hate clowns. I said it in my East Blue video when I first started One Piece, because when I was first introduced to Buggy, I was so unsure if I was gonna like him. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a clown. No, I instantly loved Buggy. And seeing him in live action, I was like minutely worried that he was going to be a little too scary, because I do not like clowns. I absolutely loved him. I love, oh, big stretch. I love Buggy in the live action. The way he's portrayed as he's a lot darker in this live adaptation, but in a way that he is still very dark, but he says these funny things at times, or things he hopes is funny, and then nobody laughs but him, and it just creates such an interesting dynamic between, like, the circus atmosphere to the destroyed town to the people of the town being in chains and forced to be clapping. That line of his where he's like, oh, I didn't take everything from them, I let them keep their hands. So chilling, and really portrays Buggy as a threat, as an actual threat to the Straw Hats, to the towns as a pirate. They do a really good job of showing just the darker side of pirates, and how pirate influence can be a really horrible and terrifying aspect of living. And it does really good to reinforce that fear and hatred that Nami has of when she escapes and runs out of the tent to see the town, and it stops her in her tracks because she's so shocked and scared that they recapture her, and she gets so emotional talking to Buggy about it. It just really does a good job of reinforcing why Nami, for one, is so scared and why she hates pirates so much, but it does another really good job at hinting at the trauma in Nami's life regarding those pirates. Episode 2, out of the first 4 episodes, episode 2 was my favorite because of Buggy. The way Buggy is kind of a little more manipulative, he's more charismatic, and he's a little more psychotic than usual. But he's still, like, in the essence, he is still Buggy. Like, he's very dramatic. He's over the top. He has that rivalry. They're hinting at the rivalry with Shanks. We didn't get the Shanks backstory with Buggy, which is a little bit of a downer, but I think they're going to be saving that for later. Maybe if they do get a season 2, we might see it in season 2. If they go starting with Logtown, we might get it there. Buggy in episode 2 is a lot darker, and he is a little scary, but he's very unhinged. But because I know it's Buggy, it's still like a little humorous to me just because it's Buggy, which I guess is the effect Buggy has on people, so there's that working for him too. The whole circus carnival theme was fantastic. I love the crew dynamics. I didn't talk about episode 1. I loved the crew dynamics of how Nami and Luffy got together and they were trying to like team up to get the map, and Nami is like, no, I'm not on your crew, no, we don't make a good team, I'm only doing this because I have to. And Luffy is just very happy-go-lucky, like, oh, you're gonna be on my crew, we make a great team. He says this over and over. He does the same thing with Zorro, even though Zorro's like, we're not a crew, I don't work for you. It's so funny. I love the interactions between the 3 in episode 1, and that continues in episode 2, and Luffy already has so much faith in these 2 people who have repeatedly said that they're not on the crew, have repeatedly said they don't work with him, and when he gets trapped in that tank of water and Buggy's trying to drown him, Luffy is still so sure that his crew has his back, that they're gonna come back to him. I love that because it's so Luffy to do something like that, and I love how they portrayed him because that blind trust that Luffy has with his crew was present, and I loved it. And I love the whole breakout scene where, first of all, Buggy tried to threaten a child. That was probably the part that made me the most apprehensive and a little scared of Buggy, was when he grabbed the kid from the crowd and he was like, hey kid, you want to grow tall fast? I was just like, Buggy, no! And how Luffy reacted and breaking out of the change and then hitting Buggy, and they're figuring out that he has the chop fruit. That fight to where he's getting drowned and then Nami breaks him out and her and Zorro try to fight Buggy, which some of Buggy's insults to Zorro were very personal. It was very personal. It was kind of funny. Very offhanded insults. And he was on demon time for this episode, and I loved it. I loved just how aggressive Buggy was this whole episode. But I love after they beat Buggy, they kept small Buggy, they kept tiny Buggy, and I was so happy they did that. I was worried if they were gonna do that or not. No, we didn't have Richie the lion. There was a nod and an homage to Richie, but no Richie. There was a little glimpse of the doggy, Choo Choo, at the end when they were sailing off. So it's like, I loved how even though they had to cut things out, they kind of like tipped their hat to them as like out of respect for the show and the source material. I really love that. They do that all throughout the series. I really like how they do that, even especially knowing that they have to like cut things out. Giving them the props still and nodding to them is such a great little touch. But no, we didn't get a lot of things, and a lot of things changed about Buggy's whole scenario with Orangetown. But little Buggy was fantastic to see. I loved that they kept that part in. And in episode 2, we really get to see more of the crew dynamics, like with Zorro's growing loyalty to Luffy. How when he's chained up on the little wheel thing, I forgot his name, and the guy's throwing stuff at him and he's talking about Luffy, and Zorro's like, I don't need to believe in him, he believes in himself. It's moments like that I'm like, yes, they've captured the essence of One Piece and of these characters and their loyalty with each other. I really love that. And the Zorro and Nami dynamic is something that very much surprised me. We got some of it in the anime and the manga, especially in the East Blue, but a lot of it was kind of like off-screen in a sense. Like, you got the sense of their loyalty to each other off-screen. The live action focuses a lot on actually showing all the nuances of their relationship and how the trust builds between them and the friendship grows between them, so I really like how they're doing that. Episode 3 is the one I have like the biggest complaint about, because Usopp is one of my favorite characters. I will say, Jacob's portrayal of Usopp is perfect. I love Usopp in the live action. He is hilarious. He is the same coward and liar that we know him to be, but it's taken in a different way in the live action, and I love it. Every scene that Usopp is in is a delight. It is one of my favorite scenes. I love it so much. He's so funny. I love his introduction, how he's actually on the Going Merry and working on it, and I love how Zorro calls him out on what he actually does. It's kind of funny. But he still has that whole air about him of, oh yeah, I'm in charge here, I control these things. Here, I'll introduce you to the owner. Me and her, like, we know each other really well, but we have to use the back entrance. It's a special entrance. It's still perfect. It's so funny. I love all the dynamics, and I really, really love Kaya in this adaptation. The actress for Kaya was very good. And I love how they handled her character. There were a lot of changes in Syrup Village, of course, so it's you didn't have the kids. There was a lot less of the village involved with it. We saw maybe once or twice the village and Usopp's relation with them, and the whole and Django was taken out, replaced by more of the Kuro pirates that actually worked as butlers in the house. So there was that. One of the bigger changes was that Kuro Klahadore was slowly trying to poison Kaya to make it look like just death by natural circumstances or death by sickness, because everybody knows she's been sick, so it'd be less suspicious, which I guess would go over a little bit more smoothly than him just randomly killing her like they did in the manga. But I like how they kept it all like around the same area, because it would have been a lot of trouble trying to go from the forest to the docks, back to the mansion, to the forest, to the docks, and all of that, and removing the kids from the equation kind of makes this forest scenario a little less likely, so they kind of took that out and just kept it in the mansion. So I get why they did that change. I actually like that change. I don't mind it at all. What I do mind is how they took out a lot of Usopp's story. There wasn't enough there, in my opinion, for Usopp's story, especially talking about his dreams and how much his mother meant to him, and the effect her passing had on him, and the fact that his father is a pirate and how much he clings to that he's proud to be the son of a pirate. And his confrontations with Klahadore are much more toned down. They're not as aggressive or just confrontational as they were in the anime and the manga, and I kind of miss that, because there was a lot missed on Usopp's character, but I still think Jacob did a great job with it. What he had to work with, he delivered on it perfectly. They handled they handled Usopp perfectly. I love Usopp's character. His relationship with Kaya got a little bit more attention. We got more interactions with them, I loved every bit of it. The end of episode, I think it's episode 4, when they're leaving and they have that kiss, I thought was great because we all wanted it in the anime and the manga. We didn't get it, but we got it in the live action, so that's a win. I really loved that moment, and I love, because it's so in character, that when they kissed, Luffy looks completely lost, and he's like, wait, but I'm the captain, because Usopp said something about being captain. Luffy can't even process what's happening, and Nami's like patting him like, let them have this one. And Zorro's just pretending like he can't see what's in front of him because he's awkward about it, and Luffy doesn't even understand the situation. Nami's the only one who does, and she's just like, let it be. Just drop it. Speaking of Nami, her relationship with Kaya and the episodes that they were in, amazing. I really like the friendship that they built in these episodes. It was, I think, much needed for more of Nami's growth and development, and to further that foreshadowing with Nami, like her trust issues, why she feels like she doesn't have any friends, and how, you know, as a thief, she's always trying to steal so she can make more money because she needs the money. And I love how Kaya is able to see that about Nami. She's not upset about Nami trying to steal from her, and says, she's like, oh, it's too much for me anyways, go for it. And Kaya, like, taking the time to actually sit down and have a chat with Nami, Kaya's sickness, and how she doesn't want pity from others. She just wants to be treated like a normal person despite who she is or despite what she has. The dreams and ambitions Kaya has to become a doctor instead of running the shipyard like her parents did. And seeing those two connect and bond, because we don't really get to see Nami bond with another female in the anime and manga really until Alabasta, when she meets Vivi. And once they bond, it's a wonderful friendship. But getting to see her friendship with Kaya here was so nice. That was probably my favorite part of the 2 episodes that Kaya was in, is her friendship with Nami. Kuro, on the other hand, he was a little more unhinged in the live action than he was in the anime, and I kind of liked it. He seemed a little more deceitful and just conniving in the live action. Because it was such a shock in the anime and manga, we didn't really see any of the foreshadowing. There were hints of his betrayal and his treachery kind of hinted at in the live action before it actually came up. I think they handled it fine. I did miss some of the fights with Usopp and Kuro, but I understand why they cut that. So some of the biggest, I think they actually killed Mary in this adaptation, because he never came back. He never showed back up. And I think they actually killed him off in the live adaptation, and they didn't in the manga, so that was a lot darker. Kuro was a good change, like his, the actions he took were a little different, and having his crew in the house with him what made his plot a little more convincing, a little more believable. And one of the changes that felt really weird to me was Kobe coming to the village. That I wasn't like a huge fan of. Like, I know it was a test from Garp and all that. I wasn't the biggest fan of that at the end of episode 3, and that's who believes Usopp, and then that whole thing of them taking Luffy waking up from eating the whole pot of poison soup and throwing up on Helmeppo, and then Zorro finding them after he climbs out of the well because he got lost. I was very glad that they kept Zorro getting lost. Easily one of my favorite Zorro gimmicks. I love that they kept that in the live action. It was so funny. But yes, Zorro finds Luffy because he got lost, and the two of them leave Kobe and Helmeppo and go back to the mansion. That was a little weird. That felt a little weird and a little forced to me. Because again, at that point, I wasn't completely sold on the whole Garp-Kobe storyline. I wasn't really sure how I liked it interfering with the Usopp storyline. Because I think if they would have just left it out, they could have done so much more with Usopp's backstory. The fight with Kuro was fine. It wasn't the best fight of the series. I already know what the best fight of the series is, but I'm not going to say. But what I did really like was how they handled the crew dynamics with Usopp's addition, how they kind of invited him to go on. It was different than Luffy just saying, "What are you doing? Get on board." But they basically were like, "Well, you're coming with us, right? Like, come on with us." And they invited him on, and his goodbye with Kaya was really sweet. But I think, if anything, they nailed the crew dynamics in these 2 episodes. Like, when Nami was getting dressed in all these fancy clothing, and Zorro could care less, and Luffy was just like, "You look like Nami." And she's so upset about it, to Usopp's whole dynamic of them listening to his stories, knowing that they're not real and they're just still okay with it, to how they banter with each other and the way they interact with one another. They really nailed them down. And again, my favorite part of these episodes, besides Usopp, was Nami and Kaya's friendship. I think that was like the highlight of these episodes for me. But after Kuro was defeated and they took off, also, okay, sorry, squirrel moment, the cards for the bounties, when they come up, when we're introduced to someone with a bounty, I absolutely love how they do it. They did it with Alvida in episode 1. They did it with Buggy at the end of episode 1. They've done it with, like, with Kuro. They do it with Arlong and Mihawk, and they did it with Roger. They did it with all of them. I know I haven't commented on Roger, like the whole opening sequence with Roger. Yes, it's a little different, but I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. So that's why I didn't say much about it, because I actually really liked the opening sequence and everything in the introduction to the world. I liked it. So one of the last things I'll talk about is the backstory with Zorro. The impact for Zorro's backstory, and honestly, Zorro's backstory wasn't one that hit me very hard to begin with. That wasn't the most impactful backstory to me. I had a lot of emotions with Luffy, Nami, and Sanji specifically. Usopp's I had some, but Zorro's I had some as well. It wasn't the most impactful. It didn't hit me as much, but it never hit me as much as it did other people to begin with. Like, it was really sad. Like, he has a very sad backstory, and his promise to Kuina holds a lot of weight, and he lives by that promise, and he lives by this desire and determination to fulfill his dream and her dream, and I love that. But it wasn't one of my favorite backstories, so I saw it, and it was fine. It was a good backstory, but it still didn't have that punch that you get in the anime or the manga. I like the way they added the funeral scene and Zorro asking the master's permission to carry the sword at the funeral scene when they're all on that dais. I liked that part. That was really good. But I do like how they paired his backstory with him struggling, trying to climb out of this well, and, you know, kind of flashing back to all of his losses, and he's taking defeat after defeat from Kuina as a child, and he keeps falling back down the well, and he's struggling and struggling to get up. I do like how they did that. That was a very artistic way to incorporate his backstory in a more natural setting and still show it to its full extent. I really liked how they incorporated his backstory. Of course, the well wasn't there in the anime and manga, but I actually liked the scene in the live action. I liked how they did that. So I really enjoyed, if anything, from Zorro's backstory, how they paralleled it with his current situation of how he was trying to get out of the well. I thought that was really well done. Small thing, but I love the Going Merry. I love her design. She looks great. I'm so happy to have her. That's all I wanted to say. But at the end of episode 4, as they're all leaving, I was not expecting the whole Garp reveal that early. I get why they did it. I get why they did it, because they've condensed it. They've left teasers just in case, you know, they don't get another season. They want more intrigue for people there. And Garp's revelation of him not only being a Marine, but him being Luffy's grandpa adds more conflict to Nami's character in the coming episodes, and it gives another point of contention, another point of topic to talk about amongst the crew. And I think they could still do it again. Like, if the live action did happen to continue to like post Inyaki'S lobby when that reveal is supposed to be there, if they did continue to that point, there's still the whole rest of the crew that joined up to that point who won't know about Garp's relation to Luffy, so it will still be a revelation to those characters. So maybe they could play it off like that if they want to do that, if they make it that far in the live action, which, as successful as the first season was, I am very, very hopeful that there's going to be a season 2, which I think there might be. I hope there is. But I think, while it shocked me that they revealed Garp so early, it makes sense to a degree, and it doesn't completely ruin the storyline or the story or anything like that. And I love actually Garp's reaction. Garp's actor was phenomenal, okay? Like, no, he's not as goofy as he is in the manga, but he's still goofy to an extent. I love his characterization of his confrontation with Luffy, how, you know, he's asking Luffy to stop. It kind of parallels post Inyaki'S lobby in a way when Garp has to go after Luffy. He's going after him, he's asking Luffy to back down or surrender, and Luffy says never, and Garp fires. He grabs the cannonball and chunks it, because of course he does. And Luffy deflects it, and it breaks the mast. And at first, Garp is so upset, and then he starts laughing. I love that. I love that, because it's like he's irritated that Luffy did that to his ship, but then he's like, oh, that's my grandson. That's my boy. I really love that dynamic. I think they nailed that down really well, so I was very pleasantly surprised with Garp and Luffy's interactions. They were good, and I liked Garp's reaction to Luffy. It was so funny. I know that's kind of getting into, like, I guess episode 5 maybe a little bit. I don't remember. But yeah, that was episodes 1 through 4. Again, there was a lot of changes in the episodes that work, and there were some that didn't work as well, but overall, this has been the best adaptation I've ever seen. Best live adaptation, absolutely, 100%. I've never seen a better live adaptation than this one. And I'm so happy. The casting was on point. The music has been amazing. Some of the emotional points have hit. I think the ones that got to me in the first 4 episodes, the Shanks and Luffy moment, Usopp at the end of episode 3 when he's running around trying to get somebody to believe him and they don't, and he kind of falls to his knees upset and starts crying saying no one will believe me. That one kind of got me a little bit too. But that's just because I'm partial to Usopp. But that is my take on episodes 1 through 4 of the One Piece live action. The rest of the One Piece live action, episode 5 through 8, I'll talk about next Tuesday. Be on the lookout for that. What are y'all thinking of the live action? I absolutely loved it. It's been a joy to watch the entire time. It's really been a joy. Like, yes, I have my nitpicks and my complaints about a few things, but overall, I have absolutely loved it. I have absolutely enjoyed my time with it. The actors are great. The cast is just phenomenal. The sets are amazing. The music is on point. I've really been enjoying myself, and my favorite characters come up in the last part. And I think my favorite episodes are in the last half of the series, so I will have a lot of fun reviewing those, especially because my favorite boy's in them, Sanji. So, you know, I'm already excited to talk about that. But that's all for this video. Thank y'all so much for watching. When I film the next part of this, I will be back in my usual setting, so this will be the only video that I'm a little out of sorts, out of place. So if this video's a little out of sorts, I'm sorry. It's a little rushed. I had to make do with what I had. But let me know what y'all think of the One Piece live action. Let me know on, especially on episodes 1 through 4, what you thought of it, what you thought of the acting, the sets, the changes, what you thought of everything. So that's all for this video. Thank y'all all so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of y'all, and I will see you in the next one, scholars. Bye!